The supernatural and mystical side of the Marvel Comics universe is vast and ancient, with characters and stories dating back decades and entire ages. One such character first arrived on the scene with Autumn 1972's Fear issue 11, and that is one Jennifer Kale. But that's not where the story begins. No, like we've done many times before, we must travel back centuries, the days before Atlantis sunk into the ocean, to a time before modern man. The pre-cataclysmic era, 18,000 BC, is where we arrive, where Atlantis was a rich, advanced, shiny city of legend. Atlantis was full of cutting-edge science and technology, but also home to magic and even more arcane powers that tapped into the primordial, cosmic powers of the universe and the might of the old gods. One sorceress named Zered Na, it turns out, was working with Agamotto to become one of the Earthrealm's earliest Sorcerer Supreme successors. She foretold of Atlantis' fate, and so King Kamu banished her to Thuria on the mainland, a continent ruled over by King Kol. There, Zered Na began to worship Valka, one of Gaia's sons, and through this worship, she built a loyal, devout following that became the cult of Zered Na. And just as she predicted, the Celestials came down and caused the great sinking of Atlantis. It was during this time that a loyal demon to Dweller in Darkness named Despair ended up killing Zered Na, and it was on that same fateful day that Atlantis sunk beneath the ocean waves. A follower of Zered Na's named Dakim carried on with Zered Na's teachings and legacy. Eventually, Ilyana Kale, who carried on with the cult, built up her own power and her following, ultimately binding it all into the mystical tome of Zered Na. Ilyana made it so that only with the combined power of someone from the Kale bloodline, coupled with both angelic and demonic entities, could access and use the tome. This was set up to prevent abuse of the book and the immense power it contained within. That demonic entity bound within the book was the demon known as Hellfire. The book stayed in the Kale family, passing down over centuries, eventually coming into the possession of one Joshua Kale, the grandfather of two kids, Andy and Jennifer Kale. Joshua ran the cult of Zered Na from the swamps of Florida. This is the same area where Man-Thing and the Nexus of all realities resided. One day, Jennifer Kale stole the Tome of Zered Na from her grandfather Joshua, not realizing how dangerous it was, and so she and her brother Andy ended up using the book and accidentally summoned a demon to Earth. Next, Jennifer's friend Jackson became possessed by the demon, and they needed help from Man-Thing to exorcise Jackson, and through this event, Jennifer realized she had a psychic connection to Man-Thing. Then Joshua Kale and the cult of Zered Na went into Man-Thing's swamp in order to perform a ritual which would bring the tome back to them. After summoning the mists of Malok, Jennifer and Man-Thing were sent to another dimension called Sant. In Sant, they encountered Dakim, and he tested them. Jennifer passed Dakim's tests, earning the support of Dakim at that time. Later, Man-Thing was rampant in Citrusville, Florida, and ended up seemingly destroyed by some shotgun-wielding locals. So Joshua Kale gathered the cult of Zered Na up to reveal the hidden history of the cult to them. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Man-Thing were with Dakim when the cult was kidnapped and transported to a place called Sominus. Jennifer located the missing tome, but when she went to touch it, an elf demon named Yup sent them to Sominus as well. Joshua had Jennifer touch the book, and when she did, everything was reset, and they were sent back to Citrusville, Florida. With everything reset, the cult disbanded, and the book disappeared, and as a result, Jennifer's psychic link with Man-Thing was also severed. Jennifer was still bothered by her disconnection with Man-Thing, something that her family made note of at a Save the Swamp rally. And it got worse for her. Jennifer started having nightmares as her mind entered a plane called the Land between night and day. It was a confluence of issues caused by the severing, with her powers building in a conflict with the demon Thog and the Congress of Realities brewing. And as her condition worsened, she had waking nightmares that caused her to crumple to the floor in agony. One night, a barbarian named Korik the Barbarian was transported from another dimension right into Jennifer's bedroom. The Kales showed up to defeat Korik, followed by Dakim, who appeared to them and warned them of threats to come. And it was then that the plan was for Jennifer to leave Earth to become Dakim the Enchanter's apprentice and to learn his magic. Dakim took them to his citadel in the Land between night and day, and as Dakim was about to explain to them what was going on. After the Nexus of all realities was damaged, Thog tricked the Congress of Realities into letting him merge worlds to make a new reality that he would rule over. So some Congress members, now loyal to Thog, showed up at Dakim's citadel and took Jennifer prisoner. Thog then ordered his followers to kill Jennifer Kale, but Dakim was able to portal her to safety. Then Jennifer teamed up with Dakim, Korik the Barbarian, Man-Thing, and Howard the Duck to defeat Thog and the Congress of Realities splinter group. In Giant-Size Man-Thing issue 3, we learned that Clonus and Mortok were planning on conquering Catharta, homeworld of Korik the Barbarian. So Jennifer gathered both Korik and Man-Thing, and they went to join up with Dakim in order to stop the Conquerors. and at the end, Jennifer wrapped them in a magic cocoon and cast them away into the depths of space. Sadly, Dakeem was mortally wounded by Clonus in the battle and ended up dying. So Jennifer and the heroes of the battle buried Dakeem at the edge of Man-Thing's swamp, marking the grave with the sign of Zered Na to honor him. And despite being dead, Dakeem's ghost would continue to advise and guide Jennifer, even as she figured out how to have her feet in both the normal and the occult worlds, straddling the light and the dark. In Howard the Duck's book, Jennifer joined Korik, Howard the Duck, and Man-Thing in defeating the head of the Imperium Emporium. This villain was the child of a demon queen named Sombra from the Magrim dimension, and he wanted to conquer the multiverse, burning it to the ground and installing a strip mall in its place. Why that? Well, it's Howard the Duck's book, that's why. In Marvel Team-Up issue 68, Jennifer and the ghost of Dakeem were abducted by the demon Despair and bound to his tower so he could siphon off their spirit, hoping to turn them into his pawns at the same time as he grew in power. It was Man-Thing who took Spider-Man to the Tower of Despair, and they were able to stop the demon and free both Dakeem and Jennifer. After that, the Kales were kidnapped by Baron Karl Mordo, who wanted to sacrifice them to summon a Chaos Demon to Earth. But Jennifer managed to get in touch with Man-Thing, who saved them while Doctor Strange worked on saving the demon's victims. She later cast a spell to help Barbara Bannister help find John Daltrey, but Jennifer Kale was hit with a magic bolt, so she reached out to Doctor Strange for help, but Wong told Jennifer Doctor Strange wasn't available just before they were attacked by a biker gang. It was Jennifer's brother, along with help from Man-Thing and a guy named John Kowalski, who helped take down the biker gang. It turns out that Daltrey was working for the demon Thog, and part of their plot was to kidnap sorcerers on Earth. So Jennifer was abducted along with Doctor Strange, Clea, and a lot of other spellcasters, including none other than Chris Claremont. Man-Thing defeated Thog, which freed Jennifer and all the others. After that, this guy from Earth S named Quagmire, not to be confused with Glenn Quagmire, started to use Man-Thing as a doorway to Earth, and so Jennifer Kale tried to help him, but got caught in quicksand. That's when Quasar came in and freed Jennifer, and stopped and imprisoned Quagmire. He didn't waste the opportunity to ask Jennifer out sometime. Giggity. In a miniseries called Legion of Night, we find Jennifer Kale in Malibu, California now, at college and working toward an MBA. This is when Charles Blackwater, aka Omen, came to her to join the Legion of Night, who needed to stop the Fellowship from summoning the alien dragon, Fin Fang Foom. In Quasar issue 50, Jennifer detected an impending mystical conflict. Aresh Kagal had taken the Starbrand power from Kayla Ballantine, Quasar's administrative assistant/girlfriend. She used this power to destroy Man-Thing, and so Jennifer went to the swamp to save Man-Thing. She had Quasar, Kayla, and even Whizzer from the Squadron Supreme on scene to help with the cleanup efforts. When a Nexus opened up in Man-Thing, Jennifer held it open long enough for Quasar to free the Nexus and then defeat Aresh Kagal. A little while after that, Jennifer decided to take a break from magic, and so she went back to California, but this time instead of Malibu, ended up in Berkeley, California, and involved in a plot with Silver Dagger. So after that, Jennifer moved back east, this time finding herself on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and it was then that Doctor Strange came to her for help with Danny Ketch, the Ghost Rider. Jennifer used her powers to help restore his memory, uncovering the name Noble Kale. She then went into her astral form to fight the Furies and save the Void, but in the battle, her astral form was impaled, which caused her physical form to be hurt too. And then later, Danny Ketch and Johnny Blaze's astral forms were sent into the past to unravel the mystery, which is when they figured out that the Furies wanted to destroy them all. And then after erasing Danny Ketch's parents' knowledge that Danny was Ghost Rider, they prepped for another standoff with the Furies. And in that fight, Valkyrie came to help battle the Furies, calling on Magdalena as well for aid. It was Magdalena who told the Furies they no longer had to seek revenge against Noble Kale. Then Jennifer Kale and Johnny Blaze confronted Black Rose before Blackheart took her away. Johnny asked for Jennifer's help to find his missing kids. They went back to Jennifer's apartment to find Howard the Duck waiting for her help as well. Then Wong showed up with a mystical text that Jennifer wanted to cast to send Howard back to Duck World. But instead of Duck World, they accidentally opened a portal to Dinosaur World, and that's how Devil Dinosaur and Moon Boy ended up in Jennifer Kale's Manhattan apartment. Devil Dinosaur was disoriented at being pulled through the portal and frightened, and his tail smashed a brick wall which collapsed on top of Jennifer, so she was taken to a hospital to be treated while Ghost Rider went after the rampaging Red Dinosaur. When Jennifer was well enough, she sent Devil Dinosaur and Moon Boy back to Dinosaur World. After this ordeal, Jennifer was completely exhausted, so she went back to her apartment and ended up throwing Johnny Blaze out because she just wanted to rest. After she rested enough, they went to look for Johnny's kids the next day, to no avail. Jennifer used some of Blaze's hair to try to locate the Wendigo who was last seen with Blaze's kids. They went to Canada to look, but ended up getting lost. Ultimately, Jennifer found her way back home, and one time back at home, while in the middle of a seance, the being Eternity appeared before Jennifer, and Eternity gave Jennifer some of his power in order to find Ghost Rider and stop Mephisto from working with the Top Cow universe. In the X-Force book, Jennifer Kale again moved to California, again to the Bay Area, but this time San Francisco. That's when Cannonball, Danny Moonstar, and Bedlam from X-Force came to Jennifer for help fighting Pandemonia. Jennifer joined X-Force in freeing the rest of their team and then sending Pandemonia back to her own dimension. And now with her new friends, Jennifer began working with Danny Moonstar to analyze her powers, and later as their bond grew, they ended up taking Tai Chi classes together. In X-Force issue 100, Jennifer Kale brought Man-Thing to help X-Force take on Arcadia DeVille. In the Witches miniseries, Doctor Strange brought Jennifer Kale to fight the demon Hellfire, who'd been released from the Tome of Zarad-Nah. Jennifer's brother Andrew Kale had been invited to take a look at an ancient collection of mystical, arcane books by a guy named Lou. Lou, it turns out, was actually Marduk Curious, one of Satan's identities, and Andrew was tricked into opening the Tome of Zarad-Nah, thereby releasing the demon Hellfire. Satana Hellstrom on the Witches team just happened to be Marduk's daughter. Hellfire then possessed Andrew Kale. Strange sensed the magical ripples through reality and pulled in Satan's daughter, a Kale who could close the book in the form of Jennifer, and Topaz, who was a disciple of Stephen Strange, and together they formed an ad hoc team known as the Witches. Satana and Jennifer argued to law, and it was Satana who called out the fact that Jennifer Kale was bisexual. Meanwhile, Lilith, mother of demons, sensed Hellfire's presence on Earth and released her Lilin to attack the witches. Satana's father showed up too and tried to turn her, but she fought back and they were able to destroy Hellfire while Doctor Strange took out Lilith, but not permanently. She managed to get away. Strange wanted to put the Tome of Zarad-Nah under his protection like his other mystical artifacts, but Jennifer Kale refused to hand the tome over. Instead, the three witches vowed to protect the book themselves. Around the time of Civil War, Jennifer Kale registered with the Superhuman Registration Act and the Initiative and was then assigned to a Florida-based team called The Command. Together they took on threats in their region, even through the Skrulls' secret invasion on Earth. This team ended up in a miniseries called Marvel Zombies 3. Here, Jennifer was in the Florida Everglades on patrol with Aquarian, the Conquistador, and Siege. Siege called her Witch Girl just before they ran into some zombies in the swamp. They also encountered a zombified Deadpool, and Deadpool threw some edged weapons at the patrol, and one blade impaled Jennifer's forearm by design. Deadpool wanted to sever the tendons in her forearm to prevent her from casting spells. Wondar then blew Deadpool up, and his blood and guts covered Jennifer, and she was disgusted by this. The others were infected, and suddenly Jennifer was all alone. Zombified Siege tried to pull her into the swamp, but she managed to crawl into a nearby shack. Siege was torn in half, but he crawled toward her like a Terminator, saying he was disappointed she no longer wore her barbarian bikini outfit just before his head was blown off with a pistol. Jennifer was taken back to The Hollow, a secret underground bunker for Armor, which was a group like S.H.I.E.L.D., Sword, and Hammer, but which dealt with extra-dimensional threats. There, Armor agents put her in quarantine. A rogue dimensional wave had passed over Earth, which caused Earth to blend with a world overrun with a zombie plague, which is why zombies happened to be in the Florida Everglades. Then, after the fake Morbius bit an agent in the zombie outbreak spilled into the Hollow facility, Jennifer sat in her quarantine room, terrified and huddled behind her bed to hide from the zombie horde and the horrific massacre in the hallways outside. She stayed there while Jocasta and Machine Man shot their way through the zombie horde. At the end, though, Morbius recruited her, Damon Hellstrom, aka Hellstorm, Man-Thing, and Werewolf by Night to the newest iteration of the Midnight Suns. They were tasked with hunting down any zombies who may have escaped from the Hollow. In Marvel Zombies 4, Jennifer got a new witch armor and went out first battling zombies aboard a cruise liner called Tranquility. She was able to use her magic to blast through countless zombies. Damon Hellstrom said that though she fights on the side of angels, that her wrath rivaled that of the armorer of the Ninth Circle of Hell. They were now stuck on the ship, which was on a course to collide with the island of Tano, the same place where the zombie Simon Garth and a Headpool had come ashore, not too far from a plantation owned by a villain named Black Talon. Jennifer teleported them to shore just as the vessel exploded, obliterating the rest of the zombies on board. Jen then led the group, allowing the Eyes of Volca to be their guide to their prey. On the trail to more zombies, they ran into Parker Robbins, aka the Hood's crew, and Jen ended up battling with Dancing Macabre, aka Night Shift. Jen said, "I'm from the Everglades, so I know a skank when I see one." But Night Shift ended up using her power of Kali to take Jennifer down for a moment. That is, until Morbius 8 Night Shift. Jen used her power to keep the zombie horde at bay as long as possible, and to make matters worse, Morbius' zombie vaccine mutated and was now airborne. Jen was about to be infected, but Dormammu appeared before her, offering his help if she would just take his hand. Dormammu said Jennifer would be a much better servant than the Hood, and he wanted to bathe her in the flames of Faltine. Jen said that the Tome of Zered-Nah warned all to reject the temptations of Dormammu, Lord of the Dark Dimension. Man-Thing showed up to help his friend, and Dormammu retreated, saying if she had a change of heart, all she'd have to do is call his name. Man-Thing was able to be there because Jen had some swamp mud from back home which allowed him to appear. The Hood joined them, and then they took out Black Talon while Jen used her power to see through Man-Thing's eyes and the infected rain that was pouring down outside. If they weren't able to contain the virus, Armor had authorization for an orbital nuclear strike on the island. Jen watched helplessly as Man-Thing battled zombies and the infected rain disintegrated her friend. Jack Russell came to Jen, but he was infected, and so Jen was forced to call out to Dormammu for help. Dormammu appeared and granted her power, Jennifer Kale's head now alit with the flames of Faltine as blood dripped from her body. The Midnight Suns fought on the ground while Jen unleashed a massive blast of power from her face to dissolve the necrotic mist. She sensed Deadpool and disintegrated him with her new power. Now overcome with her new dark energy, she turned on Hellstrom, even appearing to him as Patsy Walker Hellcat to confuse him. Hellstrom was able to use his power to draw Dormammu out of Jennifer Kale's body, freeing her of his control, and then blasted Werewolf with pure moonlight to get him to stop attacking Morbius the living vampire. With a nuclear strike imminent, Jen had to combine her powers with Black Talon's voodoo magic to teleport all of them off the island. At the end, Midnight Suns stayed together to work with Armor on other threats. In New Avengers, Doctor Strange had to step down as Sorcerer Supreme, and as he told Wiccan, he tracked down one Jen Kale. The Eye of Agamotto came to Jennifer, considering her as a Sorcerer Supreme replacement. During the time of an event called Fear Itself, Man-Thing was now the teleporter for a team called Thunderbolts. It was through this connection that Jennifer Kale ended up in a Thunderbolts book. At first, she was disguised as a guy named Gary, and then she worked with her friend Man-Thing to defeat the Hunters of Velis-Kar. And then to fight back during Fear Itself, she rejoined when Steve Rogers reassembled the Initiative. In Avengers Academy, both Reptile and White Tiger came to see Jennifer Kale at the Florida headquarters of Armor for her help in figuring out if their amulets were good or evil, but then she was called away to help Talking Ducks, presumably something somewhere on Duckworld. Later, Victoria Hand attacked Jen in Miami and the two battled in a darkened condo of a South Florida high-rise. Victoria tried to kill Jen, but this was actually Jericho Drum who'd possessed Victoria and was using her to wipe out all of his competition. Later, the FBI came to her to question her about the disappearance of Jennifer Kale. Jen had been killed, but she used dark magic to return from the dead. She was now at the Nexus of all realities, serving as the mystic guardian of the Nexus. Jen was now cloaked, and her face horribly disfigured by the same dark magic that had brought her back to life. Elektra and director Maria Hill came to her for help finding both Bullseye and the Hand. She was still there working in secret, though the world thought her dead. Jen had Elektra eat the ancient heart of a dragon in order to find the Hand. Soon after this, Ethan Slaughter of Miss Tech attacked and wounded Jen. In 2018, when Deadpool went to Weird World, he encountered a version of Jennifer Kale there. This version of Jen was the Swamp Queen who ruled over an army of Man-Things. Deadpool ended up falling in love with Jenny from the swamp, and they worked together to fight back against Witch Queen, Morgan Le Fay. This is similar to the Secret Wars, Battle World, Weird World domain version of Jennifer, though there she was Queen of the Man-Things that lived in the forest of the Man-Things. Jennifer Kale then summoned the demon Belasco in X-Men Curse of the Man-Thing so that Man-Thing could get revenge on Belasco. Ultimately, Belasco was dragged into the Dreadscape for his punishment. In the Marvel Max continuity, Jennifer was a 22-year-old exotic dancer using the name Witch Woman, and who took care of her 10-year-old brother, Andrew. In that story, they ended up having a run-in with AIM. And speaking of run-ins, we've run into the end of this video, which means that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.